Thank you to Dear Villagers for sponsoring this video. So as you may know, I kinda love beat 'em ups. So when Big Helmet Heroes reached out to make a video on their game, I got really excited. With a stunning 3D art style and satisfying combat, Big Helmet Heroes ticked all the right boxes. And with it being available on Steam, Nintendo Switch, PS5 and the Series X, Big Helmet Heroes can be played by anyone. So if you like what you see, don't forget to check the game out through the link in the description. But with all that rambling out the way, let's find out if you can beat Big Helmet Heroes hard mode without dying. So loading into the first level and we are greeted with the tutorial. Here we can learn the basics of movement, combat, dodging, and did I just summon a herd of sheep? Yeah, so Big Helmet Heroes has a large roster of playable characters. 29 to be exact. Each hero possesses their own unique super that can be casted upon filling your super bar. So as of right now, we are playing a shepherd, who is a warrior. Warriors have a nice mix of attack and defense, making them a reliable class to play. As for the other three classes in Big Helmet Heroes, we'll get to that once we unlock them. Up ahead, we get introduced to the weapon system. Weapons can be found all throughout the game, each providing their own combat style and status effects. However, these weapons do have a limited duration before breaking, so we'll need to use them wisely. The final mechanic the tutorial teaches are the presents. Presents can be achieved by collecting flowers found through the game. Each flower contributes to your present meter, and once filled, will deliver you a loot box. These presents often contain a weapon, healing item, and supercharge, making them really handy in certain situations. But with that being said, we can now move past the tutorial and hey, who are you guys? Get off my screen! So after defeating all the enemies, we are introduced to the queen who just got kidnapped by a dragon. I'm sure it'll be okay. One of these nights will surely go and save her. Wait, what just happened? How did you all get knocked out? I guess we'll go save her. After fighting my way through some goblins, I came across a golden cage. These cages can be found all throughout the game and hold a new character with their own unique ability. This is Ray, and as the name suggests, Ray has a giant, Ray. Ray is also a rogue, which is the second class in Big Helmet Heroes. Rogues are the assassin type build, having dual wield daggers that can deal some serious damage. They're also extremely fast and can do some crazy crowd control, but at the trade-off of being really squishy. Yeah, rogues can die in an instant, which isn't great for a deathless run. However, Big Helmet Heroes has a swap out system. So with a single press of a button, I can swap out Ray with Shepherd. This allows me to use Ray and get some serious damage in, before quickly swapping to Shepherd to tank any damage. Plus, any damage you do as your current hero will heal your other characters that are not in play, something I'm going to do a lot in this run. But moving on, and I entered a maze which changed the camera to a bird's eye view. Now this was really cool as it made the game feel completely different, whilst at the same time giving me a better view of the maze. Which I suck at, by the way. Yeah, I'm no good with mazes. But whilst fighting enemies, the dragon from earlier actually flew over the maze. So of course I decided to follow it, which led me to another caged hero. This ended up unlocking Frosty, who is another rogue class. And as the name suggests, Frosty freezes enemies. Yeah, these names are really on the nose. But this ability was actually an insta-kill to any enemies nearby, which really helped in this next part since the walls were closing in. But after defeating all the enemies, I eventually made my way to the first boss fight. For this fight, I had to destroy the boss's shield, which wasn't too hard with the rogue's insane damage. After destroying the shield, the boss becomes more aggressive. And well, with the mix of Frosty's ultimate and the rogue's damage, this boss was not a problem. Now before loading into level 2, I actually get to choose who to bring in with me. However, I'm only allowed to bring in 2 heroes at a time. So I decided on Shepherd and Frosty for that nice mix of damage and defense. Yeah, sorry Ray, you're just not gonna cut it when Frosty's around. Loading into the next level, and I did my usual goblin slaying, sheep petting, and dying. Wait, what? Yeah, so I was not joking when I said the rogues were weak. Like seriously, this one bomb basically insta-killed me. So on my next attempt, I made sure to avoid any and all bombs, before moving into the goblin's bar and beating them up with an electric guitar. Hey, that rhymed. This is also where we acquired the third class of the game, that being the Brute. Now if the Rogue is the squishy of big helmet heroes, then the Brute is the complete opposite. With a heavy two-handed weapon, the Brute may be slow, but makes up with it with some tanky HP. Now this specific hero is called Giant, and could you guess what he does? Yeah, I think I might just stop explaining these abilities. But whilst Giant is, well, Giant, he does some insane damage and is completely immune to all attacks, which is great for the no death run. So I stomped my way through the enemies and made it to the second boss fight, which is the dragon that kidnapped the princess. For this fight, I abused the Brute's ranged attack to do constant damage to the dragon. I repeated this until the dragon got sick of me and decided to body slam me. Now let me be clear here and say that this is not a death. Doing things such as falling off the map will cause you to lose some health, but unless your character's one-shot, you will end up respawning back where you left off. And for this run, a death is only counted when a character fully dies. But with that confusion cleared up, I continued tanking the dragon's attacks with a Brute and occasionally swapping out to disperse some of the damage. But after a short while, the dragon was defeated and we can go save the princess. Just kidding. Yeah, so it turns out that the princess is evil. So we're no longer saving her, I guess, and now we're defeating her? But that's not important, because now we've got to choose our next two characters for the third level, and I decided to go for Giant and Frosty. So loading into the third level, and what is that? But ignoring the giant horse thing, I went on and defeated more goblins, became the world's best weed whacker, and slid down a mud hill. This led me to a golden cage, which unlocked our fourth and final class, that being the Monk. Monks are the most agile class in Big Helmet Heroes, being great at avoiding attacks, whilst also having a great reach on their own. And as for Kronos, wait, Kronos? You're saying his name isn't what he does? Hold on. Kronos is the god of time, huh? Well, it could just be a coincidence. Oh, for the love of... Next was a mini-boss, which wasn't really an issue when I'm rocking 3 of these guys. Using Frosty and Kronos, I could get in some serious damage, before swapping out to Giant and getting some healing. The reason I have 3 characters is because any heroes you rescue in a level will stay with you until the end. So with this combo, I was able to defeat the mini-boss and power through the level. This led me to a wave survival where I immediately dashed towards the waterfall. This ended up being a secret room housing another caged hero. This unlocked the barbarian Gigatoy. Now Gigatoy gets, well, a Gigatoy, okay, I'm gonna stop. Gigatoy's super allows him to enlarge his weapon, which completely obliterated everyone. This allowed me to power through the waves, leading me to the 8th and final one, where I now had to fight 2 mini-bosses at the same time. But with the power of a small bridge, I was able to separate them, making it a much easier fight. And with the giant's dead, we moved into the next level. For level 4, I went with Frosty and Giant again since this combo is pretty insane. Along the way, I found a sword that was stuck in a rock. Or a rock that was stuck in a sword? Hey, it did great damage, I'm not complaining. I then survived 4 waves of reinforcements, took an elevator down to the beach, and saved another hero. This is the Monk Sandstorm, whose super... Moving up the beach, and can we take a second to appreciate these backgrounds? I love the way the camera shifts and moves to display backgrounds as you move along the level, revealing these absolute gorgeous backdrops. But up ahead, we once again had another wave survival, which I quickly defeated with Giant's ability. This brought me on to the next level, where I decided to bring Giant and Sandstorm. And for the next level, I actually had the side objective of destroying 10 jack-o'-lanterns, which was hidden throughout the level. So that meant, destroy all pumpkins! But pumpkin killing aside, I came across a golden cage containing the warrior Tornado, or what I call him, the ultimate Beyblade. But don't let this character distract you from the ultimate goal. There's still pumpkins out there. So I went and hunted the final few, which rewarded me with, oh god, is that the pumpkin Grim Reaper? No, that's actually Medusa? I wonder why they called him that. Oh yeah, that makes sense. The next character I unlocked was Bubbles, who could trap enemies and send them flying off screen. But whilst I was in this room, I noticed this circular glass that was kind of out of place. And by picking it up, I was able to return to the previous room and slot it into this glass. I then spent the next few minutes searching for the rest of the missing pieces, which rewarded me with yet another character. This is Funny Rain, whose super actually spawns in a bunch of presents, but these only contain weapons and no super or healing, as that would kind of be broken. Up ahead, I survived 5 waves of a typical high school boys bathroom before freeing a hero from a non-golden cage. These cages will always contain a random character that you have already unlocked. So after saving Shepard, I made my way to the next boss of the run, that being this giant piranha robot thing. This ended up being the most intense game of whack-a-mole I have ever played, since the boss spends most of the time underground, only giving me a few seconds to get some damage. But after making the boss's health low enough, it eventually resurfaced. This is where I switched to Giant and just tanked any and all damage, allowing me to finish off the boss for good. But while celebrating my victory, the giant fish ends up getting hooked and dragging me along with it, landing me on a pirate ship. But after defeating all the pirates, I was able to go on the cannons and use it to destroy some enemy ships. I could also destroy this rubber duck, which allowed me to shoot rubber ducks really fast. Although I probably should have calmed down since I ended up angering a sea monster. But it's alright, I'll just smack it with this ginormous hammer. But whilst I continued my fight with the sea monster, I actually came across another golden cage. After freeing Tsunami, I went back to the Kraken and defeated it using this cannon, whilst also turning one of its tentacles into a boat. This led me on to the next level, which was a desert. It's okay, calm down. It's just a desert. Are they scorpions? Okay, as long as there are no scarabs, we'll be fine. So I pushed through the desert with Tsunami, whose super summons a tsunami, which one-shots most enemies. I slid down another hill, leading me to the next golden cage. This unlocked me Multispectre, who is a rogue that can summon copies of himself, which is as OP as it sounds. This allowed me to quickly finish off all the enemies and move into the next level. Here is where I had a pretty intense fight with the next mini-boss, relying on mostly range attacks and the brute's tankiness to get through it. But after defeating the mini-boss, I sacrificed a few enemies to these hands, before being challenged to a football game. Yeah, so I had to score 3 goals in 2 minutes in order to pass, which was made pretty easy with the Warriors Shield Bash. So good game guys, oh they died. But immediately after the football game, I noticed something shining behind this wall. This ended up being the brute Titan Spectre, who just like Multispectre can summon a copy of himself. Which I wish I didn't waste on these scorpions, since I now had to fight a mini-boss plus a million enemies. Here I targeted the archers, since killing them would drop their crossbow. I then used this to burst down the mini-boss's health, finishing him off with a heavy blow. But it wasn't over, since 2 more mini-bosses spawned, plus a lot more enemies. You fools, do you know who you're messing with? Let it rip! Next was the Mummy's Temple, where I killed this innocent worker, parkoured across some pillars, and tried not to fall off this rolling pin. I eventually came across these summoner type enemies, which were my least favourite to fight in the whole run. They constantly keep their distance, summoning enemies to attack you, and anytime I got close to them, they would just go immune and teleport away. Now the trick is to use ranged weapons, but they often hide behind other enemies, making them annoying to hit. But if you're not a fan of range, then concussion weapons work too. I continued through the temple, avoiding traps along the way. This led me to a room with spiked walls that were slowly closing in, which got a little too close for my liking. I then ran up some ramps, trying to avoid these giant rubber balls. But when nearing the end, I had a suspicion that I had missed something. So I went back down the ramp and checked all of these holes in the walls. And sure enough, I had missed a golden cage. This unlocked me the warrior piranha, who summons the piranha boss from earlier in the game, which does a huge chunk of damage. After that, I rode this elevator down while surviving 6 waves of enemies, spotted this Lord of the Rings Easter egg I think, and found my next golden cage. This is the monk Gator, who summons a congregation of alligators. And yes, I did Google that. Anyway, we now have a boss fight to do, which just so happened to be my least favourite enemy. This was made even worse since 2 of my 3 characters were already low on health. But it's okay, I'm sure Frosty the Rogue is gonna carry this fight. Well, that's not good. Yeah, so this whole boss fight was spent running around the arena trying to do what damage I could. I also made sure to keep swapping out my heroes so I could keep my whole team healed. And after doing this for a while, I was able to save up enough super energy to use Giant Super, finishing off the boss and all the remaining enemies. But that's when I also realised that there were vases containing healing, which was there the entire time. Yeah, there's nothing that can cheer me up after that. Wait, is that a water slide? Yeah, this level was awesome since it contained not 1, not 2, but 3 water slides. Or are they called lava slides? Anyway, upon completing this level, I noticed that I had missed a golden cage. So I loaded back in the level and searched everywhere for this character. The golden cage ended up being in this spa room, and was accessed by jumping down this empty hot tub. This unlocked the rogue Tiny, who can make themselves extremely small. This massively increases their movement speed, whilst also making them immune to all attacks. And before anyone comments, this was done after beating the level deathless, so no, I didn't cheat. But moving on to the next level, and I was once again confronted by the princess, this time in a giant scorpion mech, which proceeded to chase me in this stunning chase sequence. But after falling in lava, I was safe from the princess and continued through the level. Or so I thought, since the princess and her mech emerged from the lava and immediately started taking out the floor. This forced me to get in close and start doing damage, making sure to dodge her attacks and getting my hits in between. And with one final swing, the princess was defeated once again. Well, I'm glad I never have to do that again. Oh, come on! Yeah, so I somehow missed another golden cage in this fairly short level, so I loaded back in and started to search everywhere. But no matter how hard I looked, I could not find this golden cage, causing me to get pretty creative. I tried letting the scorpion boss destroy all the flooring, explored every nook and cranny the map could offer, and also tried running back after the chase scene to see if anything spawned in. But this instead triggered the cutscene again, which I found pretty funny. So after about 20 minutes of searching, I decided to leave it for now and move on to the next level. Loading into the next mission, and I'm once again thrusted into a maze. And whilst trying to find my way through, I noticed a golden cage that was on the other side of this wall, alongside whatever this thing is. But whilst in the maze, I found a sword that literally turned enemies into stone. This sword ended up becoming essential, as after parkouring on these pillars the reckless way, I entered a room that had a ridiculous amount of enemies. No, seriously. Every time I thought it was gonna end, even more enemies would spawn. I had so many close calls in this room, only being saved by the odd healing items and giant super. But after defeating all the enemies, I was teleported to the room that contained the golden cage. This unlocked me the monk Exalted, who could literally rain swords from the sky. But after spending more time in the maze, I eventually found the exit, which led me to another maze. What's this level called again? Yeah, that checks out. This new maze was even more confusing. But after doing more parkour, the reckless way, I once again found myself going through multiple teleporters. This led me to another golden cage containing the monk Gunner, whose super allows me to control a cannon and rain cannonballs from the sky. Yeah, this guy's my new favourite. So after easily beating all 5 waves of this survival, I moved into the next level and made sure to bring Gunner and Exalted with me. But loading into the next level, and is that the Doctor's TARDIS? But moving through the level, and I was getting ganged up on by a group of unicorns, who I swiftly obliterated. Up ahead, I noticed these weird green balls that looked out of place, and upon destroying it, it activated a side objective where I had to destroy 10 of them. And going off the pumpkin slaughter from earlier, I knew this had a good chance of giving me a new character. So I backtracked through the level, and sure enough, I had missed quite a few of them. So as I continued through the level, I made sure to keep my eye out for any weird green balls. Although I probably should have concentrated on the enemies more since I had a close call with this mini-boss. Yeah, not having a brute was not a great choice. Oh wait, never mind. So after clearing out all of the enemies, I made it to the end of the level and somehow missed 2 of the green balls. So I loaded back into the level, killed any and all green balls, and made it to the end, where I was now missing 1. So I loaded into the level again, fought through all of the enemies, and finally found the last missing 1. This unlocked me Disco, whose ability is amazing. But early in the next level, I once again noticed something shining behind this wall. This ended up being our next new hero, who is the Brute Meteor. And if the name didn't already give it away, Meteor summons literal meteors from the sky, basically being the Brute variant of Exalted. But continuing through the level and, hey, Shepard, what are you doing there? Anyway, I once again found myself in another wave survival, where there was a pretty big switch right in the middle. This ended up determining who was getting healed throughout the fight, with green being me and red being the enemies. But honestly, with how often the switch was getting hit, I just completely ignored it. This led me to yet another wave survival, which ended like this. But before leaving the area, I once again had the side objective of destroying 5 snowmen, but with a slight twist. I had to destroy these 5 snowmen in a certain order, and getting any incorrect would reset me back to 0. But with some trial and error, I was able to guess the correct pattern, unlocking me the rogue Singularity, who literally becomes a black hole. And whilst in this form, I can move and one-shot most enemies in the game. Plus, with Singularity being a rogue, I can charge my super in seconds, making this one of the most busted characters in the whole game. However, Singularity is still a rogue, and with this newfound cockiness, I ended up getting killed. Twice. So on my 3rd attempt, I made sure to utilise the Brute in order to take down the harder hitting enemies. And for the rest, well, Black Hole goes brrr. This led me to a wave survival where, is that Gojo? That's definitely Gojo. Anyway, after bullying the enemies some more, I noticed a strange glow coming from this room. This ended up being a secret room containing our next character, who was the Brute Rockstar. Rockstar's super was similar to Disco's, playing music and making enemies unable to attack. But honestly, I don't blame the enemies, just look at this guy. But progressing through the level, and I noticed a room that I knew I could get in. So after destroying this door, I made my way into the room where the Doctor's TARDIS was here again. Maybe this is a bigger unsolved Easter egg? Anyway, I was here for our next golden cage, unlocking me the monk UFO. And I gotta say, UFO really lives up to his name. But whilst I was taking out the enemies, I noticed this giant dragon head thing. Or unicorn? I'm honestly not too sure. But it could have been that giant unicorn we saw a long time ago. But continuing through the level, we encounter the princess again, now piloting a ginormous unicorn mech, where we now had an 11-wave survival. But luckily, I had brought Singularity with me, who made light work of any small enemies, meaning I only really had to worry about the giant mini-bosses. So whenever I had no super, I would change to my brute and do all the damage I could. This would heal my other heroes, as well as building my supercharge ready for Singularity. And after defeating all the small enemies, I finished off the mini bosses using Exalted. But before I could take out the princess, she managed to escape, leaving me with the mech. And with the controls in my hand, I pulled out a guitar and rode it into space. This brought me into the next level where I now had to defend the guitar from enemy attackers, whilst also having the side objective of destroying 13 of these node things. And with the help of Singularity, I made light work of all the enemies and made my way to the other end of the guitar. I completed my side objective, unlocking me the brute Zurog, which I now just realised is a wordplay on 0G. Touché, dear villagers, touché. Zurog has the ability to remove gravity, sending all nearby enemies into the air, except on big guys. I guess they're too heavy for 0G. But after defeating all the enemies, the giant space guitar crashed into another planet, leading us on to the 20th and final level. And for this one, I was only allowed to bring in one of my heroes, which left me with a difficult decision. Do I bring in a rogue for that maximum damage? Or do I bring in a character with a powerful super? In the end, I decided to bring Titan Spectre, since I had the tankiness of a brute and a super that doubles my damage, hopefully making up for the lack of other heroes. So after sprinting through the rubble of the crashed spaceship, I confronted the princess one final time. For this first wave, I was able to collect flowers, which gave me some presents. And luck was on my side today since I was able to get a ranged weapon and burst down the boss's health, bringing me on to phase 2. For this fight, the princess now had the combat styles of all 4 classes, which she would constantly cycle through. This forced me to change how I played, since some classes are deadlier than others. But after dealing enough damage, the floor broke beneath me and we dropped down to the next area, where the princess immediately summoned the Kraken from earlier. But by using my super, I was able to burst down the princess, dropping us to the next floor. Now you may have noticed that I have a side objective of destroying 12 boxes. One box can be found per floor, meaning I constantly had to keep an eye out. So I continued fighting the princess through each floor, which actually resembled the levels that we fought through. The princess could also summon other bosses that we fought previously, which resulted in a very hard fight. At one point, my health got so low I thought I was going to die, but with some skillful dodging, aka dodge spam, and some lucky timing, I was able to get onto the next floor and grab the healing it offered. I continued fighting through all the floors, whilst dodging whatever the princess threw at me. This led me to the final floor, where I was rewarded with a golden cage for collecting all the optional boxes. This, however, almost got me killed, so I was really nervous. But with my health bar flashing red, I was able to clutch up and finally defeat the princess for good. And for beating the game on hard mode, I unlocked a even harder difficulty called Exalted. This difficulty only allows you to select one hero for the whole game. So part 2 anybody? Anyway guys, make sure you check out Big Helmet Heroes through the link in the description, as I honestly had a blast playing this game. Let me know down in the comments what you thought and if you'll be checking it out. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.